Most travelers come to Nepal for Mount Everest, but beyond the famous mountain are villages hanging between clouds, lakes reflecting entire mountain ranges, temples filled with centuries of history, and landscapes where roads seem to disappear into the Himalayas. And most visitors never see all of it. Nepal isn't just mountains. It's an entire world hidden inside them. A world where ancient traditions meet dramatic landscapes, where communities thrive at altitudes that challenge the very concept of human settlement, and where every valley reveals something different from the last. What people think Nepal is. When people think of Nepal, they usually picture one thing: Mount Everest, snow-covered peaks, and trekking routes high in the Himalayas. Images of climbers pushing toward the summit, of base camps surrounded by ice, of expedition gear and high-altitude challenges dominate the conversation. And that version absolutely exists. And once you move beyond the famous routes, once you venture into regions where tourism infrastructure remains minimal and where local life continues as it has for centuries, the experience changes quickly. The crowds thin out, the pace slows down, and Nepal begins revealing layers that most visitors never encounter. Kathmandu, the anchor. For many travelers, Kathmandu becomes the starting point. The city combines history, spirituality, and everyday life in ways that feel both overwhelming and captivating. Ancient temples stand beside crowded streets, their architecture carrying stories from dynasties that ruled centuries ago. Markets fill narrow lanes with movement and sound, with vendors selling everything from traditional handicrafts to modern goods, from spices to prayer flags. Motorbikes weave through streets barely wide enough for two vehicles. Incense smoke drifts from temples. But beyond it, Nepal becomes very different. The urban intensity gives way to landscapes where silence becomes more common than noise, where mountain views replace concrete buildings, and where the rhythm of life follows natural patterns rather than city schedules. Everest region. The Everest region attracts travelers from across the world. Towering mountains dominate the landscape in every direction, creating horizons that seem impossible until you stand beneath them. Trails connect villages separated by steep valleys, routes that require days of walking to cover distances that might take minutes by road in flatter terrain. Lhotse, Nuptse, Ama Dablam, mountains whose names mean little until you see them rising thousands of meters above already high trails. Even people who never reach the summit come for something else. They come for the experience of walking through landscapes that exist at the edge of where human communities can sustainably live. Pokhara, Nepal's quieter side. In central Nepal, Pokhara reveals another side of the country. Lakes replace mountain trails, creating landscapes where water becomes as important as peaks. The pace feels slower here, noticeably different from Kathmandu's intensity and the physical demands of high-altitude trekking. Paragliders launch from Sarangkot, floating above the valley with views that combine lake, city, and mountains in single frames. For many travelers, Pokhara becomes a place to slow down, to process the experiences from higher elevations, to enjoy comfortable guest houses and varied food options, to spend mornings by the lake and afternoons exploring nearby caves or waterfalls. Village life and people. One thing many travelers remember most about Nepal isn't only the scenery, it's the people. The welcome they receive in small guest houses, the conversations that happen over shared meals, the generosity extended to strangers passing through remote areas. In many regions, mountain villages remain closely connected, bound by relationships that span generations, and by practical necessity in environments where mutual support becomes essential. Children walk the same mountain paths their grandparents walked, often traveling significant distances to reach schools. Markets bring villages together periodically, creating social occasions as much as economic ones. Seasonal rhythms matter. Weather patterns dictate activities, and the mountain environment itself remains a constant presence in decision-making and daily routines. Spiritual life and culture. Spiritual traditions remain deeply connected to daily life in Nepal, not as separate religious practice, but as integrated elements of how communities understand their relationship with the world around them. Temples and monasteries appear throughout the country, In cities, along trails, perched on hilltops, tucked into forest clearings, Buddhist and Hindu practices often blend in Nepal, creating syncretic traditions where deities from different traditions receive worship at the same sites, where festivals combine elements from multiple religious sources. And even travelers who arrive for the scenery often leave remembering something else. The atmosphere. The sound of morning prayers echoing through valleys, the sight of butter lamps flickering in temple alcoves, the smell of incense mixing with mountain air. The sense that spiritual practice here isn't performance for visitors. It's genuine engagement with traditions that provide meaning, structure, and connection for communities who've maintained them across centuries of political change and outside influence. Food and culture. Nepalese food reflects both geography and tradition, adapting to altitude, climate, and available ingredients. Dal bhat remains one of the country's most common meals. Lentil soup served with rice, typically accompanied by vegetable curries, pickles, and sometimes meat preparations. The meal provides sustained energy, particularly important in environments requiring significant physical exertion. Tea houses along trekking routes serve it repeatedly throughout the day, with unlimited refills being standard practice. Meals here often become moments of connection, shared plates creating conversation, food preparation visible and participatory, eating rhythms following natural hunger rather than rigid schedules. The food isn't elaborate, but it's deeply connected to place. Ingredients sourced locally when possible, preparation methods adapted to available fuel sources, flavors shaped by trade routes that have moved spices and influences across the Himalayas for centuries. Why travelers are looking beyond Everest. Travel habits in Nepal are changing, slowly but noticeably. Many visitors still arrive because of Everest, drawn by the mountain's iconic status and the challenge it represents. But increasingly, travelers are exploring beyond the famous trekking routes, seeking experiences that offer different kinds of value. Village stays that provide glimpses into daily mountain life, where visitors participate in farming activities or traditional craft production. Cultural experiences that go deeper than temple visits, learning about Tibetan medicine, attending local festivals, understanding how communities manage resources in challenging environments, lakes surrounded by less traveled trails, where guest houses remain family-run and where the infrastructure caters to locals as much as visitors, and quieter regions, Mustang with its Tibetan cultural heritage, Langtang recovering from earthquake damage, Manaslu offering serious trekking with fewer crowds. This shift reflects broader changes in how people think about travel. Less focused on accumulating destinations, more interested in meaningful engagement with places and communities. Who this side of Nepal is for? This side of Nepal is for travelers who enjoy contrast and complexity. For people who want mountains and culture intertwined rather than separated. Adventure combined with slower experiences. Challenging treks followed by lakeside rest days. High-altitude passes leading to warm valley communities. Famous places appreciated alongside quieter discoveries. Everest region balanced with lesser-known ranges. Kathmandu's temples complemented by remote monasteries few visitors reach. And the country rewards travelers who approach it with curiosity rather than rigid expectations, who remain flexible when plans change due to weather or transport issues, who see delays and detours as opportunities rather than obstacles. Nepal isn't just Mount Everest. It's villages perched on impossible slopes, lakes that mirror entire mountain ranges, traditions maintained across centuries of change, and landscapes that quietly transform from one valley to another. It's the way morning light hits snow-covered peaks, the sound of prayer wheels spinning in monastery courtyards, the taste of tea served in family-run guest houses, the feeling of thin air at high altitude. And once you move beyond the obvious places, once you venture into regions where tourism remains secondary to daily life, where trails lead to communities barely connected to national infrastructure, you realize how much more there is. How much depth exists beneath the surface-level Nepal that dominates tourism marketing. How many layers of culture, history, geography, and human adaptation wait for travelers willing to look beyond the famous mountain? Subscribe for more journeys beyond the tourist version. For travel content that explores what makes places genuinely distinctive rather than just visually impressive. What part of Nepal would you explore first? The high mountain regions, the cultural heartland around Kathmandu, the quieter lake areas, or the remote valleys where few visitors venture? Share your thoughts in the comments.